Let's actually start building our modal. So our modal has our illustration, it has the header, it has the paragraph, our primary button, and then a close icon. For this, I'm just going to use a basic React component, so sign up modal. I am going to make this have curly brackets with a return function, and you'll see why once we start animating. So we have our modal wrapper. Oops. That's going to wrap our components. Now we need our illustration, so let's go and import that. So import illustrations, the object we just created, from assets. I also, while we're up here, let's import our primary button because we know we're going to need that. And again, because we're already in the components folder, we can't just import from components, so we actually have to import from buttons. So import primary button from buttons. Okay, so we have our primary button, we have our illustration being imported here. So we have our modal wrapper. The first thing that we see here is our illustration. So let's give it an image, give it a source. This is going to be illustrations.signup. Oh, no exclamation, I'm just excited. For our alt tag, technically this is not imperative to the user, right? This illustration doesn't really indicate anything that's of importance. We already have a title and we already have a paragraph. So I'm actually just, I'm gonna give this an alt of, you can add an explicit text like sign up for an account. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna set aria hidden equal to true, because if I'm using a screen reader, I don't really care that this exists. It's not helping me in any way. Let's add our header. So we've got sign up header, sign up, and then our text, sign up text. So sign up today to get access. And then lastly, our button, so primary button, sign up. Okay, so now we just have our modal. We'll get our wrapper, our illustration, our header, text, and primary button. The only thing we need is a close button here. So what you can do again from Figma is export this icon as an SVG, export close icon. Back inside of our assets, let's create one more folder called icons. And just drag in that SVG. I'm going to rename you. And lastly, just add that to the export here. So we did not use inline SVG for this illustration, which means that we actually just use it as a source attribute. So I imported it and I just use it as source. That's not inline, that's being rendered as an image. For our close icon, we do want to render this as an inline SVG because when I hover over it, for example, maybe I want to change the color, maybe I want to manipulate like the SVG DOM contents itself, and in that case, you need an inline. So what we're going to do, let's create a wrapper around our close icon. So const, what I'm going to do, since this is going to be inline SVG, I want to actually export this as a React component. Let's do that. So inside of close icon SVG, I am going to, we'll just move this down so we have that SVG code. So import React and import styled. Let's create a wrapper. This is, we're gonna need to set some styling on it, and that's why we're creating this wrapper. So const close icon wrapper. First of all, let me change this to a JavaScript file so that it's highlighting things, not an SVG. So we've got our wrapper styled, and this is gonna be a styled SVG. So it's still semantic. And inside of here, I just wanna set width to 100% and height to 100%. Now, export const close icon. It's going to be a React component. This is simply going to take our close icon wrapper. I'm going to set aria, aria hidden equals true. Why am I setting aria hidden equals true? That's because our icon we don't actually care about. It's not giving our visually impaired users any information. This is going to be a button element. So this is just the icon, and our users don't really care that it's a close icon. And inside of here, we can copy and paste this code. Now, that being said, I've already created this styled SVG, so we can actually just remove this SVG. We've already created it. So it's just a path. It's just a simple path. So our close icon is being exported. We need to add this to our exports in our index file. But this is a React component, so that's a simple export. So export star from icons close icon. And now we can actually go and add this to our modal. This is also coming from assets, so we can just import close icon. And this needs to be a button because it's interactable. That's not a word, but you can interact with it. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create one more component called const close modal button. It's going to be a button. We're going to set some style. So cursor, I want it to be a pointer. I don't want it to have a background. I want to remove the border as well. So we had set position relative on this modal wrapper. And that's because what I want to do is I want to position this element in the top right corner. And if you want to absolutely position something against a parent, the parent needs position relative and the item needs a position of absolute. So that's what we're doing here, position absolute. I want it to be at 40 pixels to the right and I want it to be at 40 pixels to the top, so 40, 40. And then I'm just going to set width and height to 24 pixels. And lastly, just no padding. I don't need any padding. And what we can do now is just kind of render this under as the last thing inside of our modal wrapper. So close modal button. I'm going to give this an aria label because again, there's no explicit text. So aria label, close modal. And inside is going to be our close icon. Oops, self-closing tag. Okay, so we created this modal button. We have this icon. It's being exported as a stateless React component. And we're just including this here. It's being absolutely positioned against this modal parent. So if I go back to my primary index file and source, what we can do now, let's get rid of these buttons. And also now that we have an index file and components, I can actually just remove this button import, just import directly from components. But remember how I said this default export, this is not going to work. So one last thing, let's make our primary button a named export. Okay, so export const primary button. We'll remove this default export at the bottom. Imports are important. Letters are important. Can't export close icon. One second. Export const close icon. That is working. Export star from icons. Oh. This is a different error at least. Can't resolve styled. So this is in components. Did I spell something wrong? Yeah. Okay, so let's actually, now that we have made primary button a named import, a named export, let's remove these and let's just import our sign up modal. Sign up modal from components. So now we can remove these. Sign up modal. And there we go. This is a little funky. This position absolute. Let's see what's going on, and then it looks like it's working decently well. This is why I didn't add a unit to my top. So if I go back to modals.js, 40, here we go, forgot my unit, and now it's being positioned absolute.